From my perspective, I'm doing this whether the Courier signs up or not. If at the end of the day we get a spot in the Chamber newsletter, or we get it on our website, or we have to publish it ourselves, that's what we control. I don't control the Courier. If they're not receptive, they're not receptive. That doesn't mean I'm not going to make every effort to do it. So they're not the only outlet. We've just got to work with what we have if they're not receptive. But I'm not going to not do it because they say they don't want to meet with me, or they don't want to accept my 500 words and they'll accept yours. I'm still going to write my 500 words, and it's going to be on the website or wherever else I can get it. Maybe we buy a billboard. I don't know. Whatever. We'll extend that as an offer. It's not received. It's not received. I don't know what to do about that. So or we could pay. If they don't give us a spot, I'm not exactly excited about that. But those are the things we'll have to address once we talk to them. So the challenge is to try to address, like the City of Grants Pass puts out in their monthly water and sewer bills, a monthly newsletter. We really don't have a mechanism to accomplish that. Our bill or our correspondence with our constituents is annual, and it has to do with the tax bills, and that's never very positive. As far as they get this thing, and then they're supposed to read something about the positive things their money's doing. I hope. We really don't have the opportunity to do that in a tax bill, and so looking at trying to find low-cost alternatives to a publication that would go out monthly to all of the residents of Josephine County to just better explain some of the situations that are covered in the media, but not always covered with 100% accuracy or the entire perspective. So that's kind of the goal.
Yeah. Basically to provide an objective, non-partisan, non-apolitical, just
this is the
straight information. Yeah. And so now I did, I'll advise the board, I did ask Anna, I sent the infamous Fence to Nowhere news article to Anna, and so if the board's interested in gleaning her observations, I would definitely invite the board to ask her about that. It's not going to be painful to hear what she has to say about that.
It was.
But it's probably worth discussing. But she's ready basically to, I think, talk a little bit about communications policy and then just hear what you have to say and do a discussion.
Okay, great.
Fine with it.
Well, thanks, and I will be brief because I know that you read kind of this memo I put together, but I will say that you're not alone. I think that local governments across the state are in the same situation as you, where you are operating on very limited funds. Generally, I think government right now across the nation is somewhat suspect to its own citizens and the media, so you have that challenge as well. And when you're working with limited funds, hiring a communications person seems to the public oftentimes as kind of an extraneous job, when in fact it's really, really important, because I think that the public does need to know and understand what you're doing on their behalf. They elect you to represent them, and telling that story does require a dedicated person. But you don't have the funds for that. So in that, I do think that there are ways with a low-cost budget for you to enhance the way that you're communicating to the public the good work you're doing on their behalf. And I will say that it doesn't necessarily come without controversy. The decisions that you're being put in a position to make oftentimes are controversial, but the public still does need to understand the rationale behind your decisions. And I think that the public will also, even if they disagree with the decision, I think that the more forward and transparent you are in your decision-making process, the more respect you'll get from the citizens. I think that the other piece is, if you do know something is going to be controversial, you'd rather tell the story on your own terms. I think it's really easy to shy away from something that you think might be bad news, so it's easier just to kind of wait for it to come out in another way. I think if something's going to be bad news or something's going to be controversial, it's much better for you to position it, you to be forward, you seek out the reporter, you seek out the ways to share the decision or the bad news with the citizens in your terms, because otherwise you're going to be chasing it and be on the defense. And the other piece is just to be accessible. Accessibility is really critical, whether it's to the citizens directly or to reporters. And I think there's different ways you can do that. You're very busy, I know, but there's a lot of opportunities to establish either weekly sit-downs with your local beat reporter. I would highly advise a monthly editorial board visit as a commission if you're allowed to do that. I know that the three of you together makes a quorum, so I don't know if that's feasible. But I think just being accessible to talk about the things that are going on in the community, what you're hearing from citizens with reporters, so they're hearing it from you, not just from the vocal minority that are often disgruntled. I also think that the media is, I'm guessing it's the same down there, but the media is hungry for content. So I think there are opportunities to provide, if there are human interest stories, things that you're coming across in your daily work that you think may not rise to an agenda item necessarily for a commission meeting, but could be an interesting topic to share with the public. By all means, the media is looking for content. They want to do their job well, and the way they do their job well is having strong sources like yourselves who are experts in what you're working on, give them information. The other thing is with the age of digital media and other social communications tools, you can be your own reporter. You can be your own news outlet and start communicating more directly with the citizens of Joseph County. Again, I'm not entirely sure how plugged into Facebook and Instagram and those other tools that are out there, how widely your citizenry is plugged into that, but I do know that reporters will follow it. So that's another way, is even if you're talking directly to citizens, reporters will follow that, and that's a way to communicate with them as well. I think that a reporter's job is to ask tough questions, and so I think it's really, really important that you don't get defensive, because that will ultimately shift the story to tone as opposed to the content. And then the other piece is being really cognizant when you're planning your agenda for board meetings, because that is a place where the media is going to attend every 2 weeks, and that is going to be a decision-making function of the entity. Is when you're going in and you know you have a big decision to make, being prepared to talk about that decision, being prepared to share with the citizens the information that you had in terms of background from your policy experts in the county, the information you used to glean the decision that you came to, and the rationale behind that, and why that is in the best interest of the county and the citizens you serve. And I think it's changing the way, instead of it just being a yes-no vote, being very prepared to communicate why you're taking the vote you're taking and why you think it's in the best interest of the citizens you serve. And that's a big cultural shift. If you have 3 stories like that, then it starts to kind of build this own narrative about the county that it's kind of like the person that's late the first few times. They could be on time the rest of their life, but you always consider them to be the person that's late. That's really important to nip that while you can and change the narrative while you can, so that you are a county that's responsive, responsible, and accessible in communicating with the public.
No, I definitely don't disagree. I'm not going to make an excuse, but it almost seems like we're past the point of resurrection on that.
Oh, yeah, that is a long time ago, but I would say the next
Not just that one, it's the cumulative effect issue that I think you were drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to commit ourselves to addressing it and then being consistent. We have to be on time for every meeting after that in order to overcome that connotation that we're late. You know what I mean? And if we're not 100% committed to that, being on time the next time but then being late 2 more times doesn't solve the problem. And so
you're absolutely right.
We have to be committed to being on time
Yep.
and addressing every element in the media that we can that is inaccurate. And frankly, there's an element of an error in every single story I think I've ever read. And so, but, you just kind of, how much are you going to do? And so I'm not trying to make an excuse, but that's the mental struggle that I have. Well, I think we're committed to trying to reach out and try to minimize those bad stories that get out there. I have a really good friend who's a commissioner in Klamath County who's past media, and I struggle from her perspective that media is so virtuous to the idea. I'm getting more pessimistic in that they're not looking for content, they're looking for headlines. And they're less about the story and more about what will grab viewers' attention. And that's really challenging for me to try to get over.
Part and parcel of that is the personal services agreement that copies should be available to you to review. And this is an agreement with Kate Dwyer, local citizen.
Hamid was assassinated as a member of the guerrillas. He suffered hell. He always had cyanide on him in case he was arrested, but he was taken by surprise, and unfortunately he was never had a chance to use it. He suffered the worst of tortures, and it shows him being whipped, beaten, and burned with an iron. Further on into the book, it states in here,
We've not introduced what the book is about. We're now talking about scenes from the book.
ma'am, if I may finish my comments, I'll wrap the whole thing so everyone understands.
We're just going to allow public comment to continue.
Okay, I just think it's misleading to discuss excerpts from a book without mentioning what the book is about.
Well, let's allow him to finish his comments.
Okay.
Iraq MiGs have bombed Tehran. No, the bastards. Those assholes. They insulted me. They said that women like me should be pushed up against the wall and then thrown in the garbage.
Okay, I'm going to...
You're offended by the word and what I just spoke. This is in the high school library.
It is the only book I have ever seen that teenagers have ever read to understand the Iranian Revolution, the fall of the Shah, our involvement in that country. And we have another book in our school library where a man is dressed in a crown of thorns and whipped. And then he is nailed to a cross. And I will never stand for you taking that book out of our school library.
The local public contracting code didn't actually require us to do solicitation of bids or anything like that, but I did contact 3 separate persons or businesses, asking them if they'd be interested in this contact. Michelle Binker, Anna, and also Kate Dwyer, and the only of the 3 who was able to do this was Kate Dwyer. And so what this would propose is that each month she would prepare a 500-word article regarding a topic of community interest. The topics would be provided by the Board of Commissioners, and the articles will ultimately be edited and submitted by county officials. So it would be ultimately your product. She would provide you the initial draft and do the research. And additionally, she would monitor the media's coverage of the county government and provide to the Board of Commissioners routine reports regarding the effect and accuracy of such coverage. So this is a contract for 1 year. It can be terminated upon 30 days' notice. It's $200 a month. So a total contract value of $2,400. Signatory for the county would be J.J. Schofield.
I think it's a good start. I did talk to Arthur about paying for this, and I don't necessarily want to use general funds. I think that has a negative connotation to a positive thing we're trying to do to provide information to the public, which is the key, I think, to bringing us together. And so, from my perspective, I think there's a positive economic element to it. We'll be dispelling some things and educating about. They need to know what we're doing out in front. So, I'm confident it's satisfied, and then I'm also confident that we don't have to. We can do. In my opinion, we can do pretty much what we want with the economic development funds. As Washington County puts them in the general fund, and we make every effort to tie it to economic development. So we're still kind of in the letter of the law.
I would like to be able to see if things are going to go out in the name of the Commissioner Hare has written a March article to represent this role of the board, so to speak, that the board has some idea of what's going in these things. Not that we would have to necessarily edit it, but yet on the other hand, to say I would like to be able to see it first if it's going out in the concept of the board's will.
Anything coming from the board would absolutely have to have the board, but if it were coming out under my name, I can write something tomorrow. I don't have to show it to you. We're using public funds. What if I told you the topic was O&C or I don't even know what else it could be, but that sort of deal. Fleet consolidation. We've talked about that.
Or even to have to say this is the next 6 months topics. This is yours, this one's yours, this is mine, or whatever, so we know what's being talked about, how it's being talked about, and we have some time frame of saying they need to have this by the 10th.
Yeah, I think that's something this person would be, responsible for the schedule. Because if we make a commitment to the courier, we've got to keep that. Say, by the 15th of every month, you will have our 500 words.
Yeah. As far as paying somebody, and it would be out of XYZ fund, not the general fund, but as far as paying somebody, is that, if anything can be misunderstood, that is certainly going to be misunderstood and misapplied and all of that stuff.
I think that what's been happening is that the counties are using it the way that they feel is most important for their economic welfare. So
that's exactly right.
Right. So, and I think that's why there was a certain amount of discretion in it, and I think that's why the state hasn't really worried about it, because every county has different needs for their economic development. As far as us using it for a communications type program, I think that's absolutely critical, because no one knows about us unless we tell them about it. And I think that that is going to be very, very important for us to make that link that it's part of our economic development. And I don't think anybody can argue with that in using economic development funds for that.